So it's vital, given this history, that we also take into account the role of power in intercultural communication and understanding that global movements of people, products, cultural forms, and representations are shaped and controlled by relationships of power. So, what direction and movement and migration people make from one country to another isn't equal, right? It's hardly equal, right? So people from the US migrating to Latin America doesn't feel as equal, right, as people from Latin America migrating to the US, right? There's these power imbalances, right? And in how people migrate and why, and products, right? Where products are made and who buys what, right? Is always met by issues of power, and particularly like inequality, right? And inequity in the system, right? Who has access? Who buys what? Where are the products made, right? And then cultural forms too, and representations, right? So in that opening example of the chapter, when Grace, the Filipino American, goes and meets her Italian boyfriend's parents, right? They have this representation of who she is, right? And, does she necessarily have, or does she have understanding or a stereotype of who his Italian parents are? Yeah, probably. But are they who has power, and how is there sort of inequity in that power relationship is what we want to take into account when we study intercultural communication, right? And also things like who controls the media. Yes. Considering things like cultural industries, right? So take, for example, like Disney, right? Disney is a huge media machine, but it also has theme parks and movies and a TV channel, right? And more we see that very few corporations actually control the media, right? And so, yeah, who gets to control the media? Who controls the messages that we get? Who governs global institutions? Yes, the chapter gets into the International Monetary Fund and the WTO, the World Trade Organization. Yeah, and who governs these, right? It's the powerful, quote unquote, historical colonial powers that are kind of govern the world economic system, right? Whose voices are heard and whose voices are silenced? Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, what representations, also going back to that, what representations become dominant, right, in our eyes? What representations do we not even see, right? And we have to consider that when we take into account power, right? There is no intercultural communication doesn't exist in some vacuum of equal opportunity and in some ahistorical context, it doesn't take into account history of oppression and colonialism, right? And so we have to be aware. We have to be aware of these things. Access, availability, and visibility of different cultures reflect power relations among cultures. Yes. So, what kind of visibility is a given culture allowed, right? And again, I go back to that opening anecdote of Grace and her meeting the parents of her boyfriend, right, in Italy, right, and sort of like what kind of visibility did she have as a Philippine American, right, and what these Italian parents were able to see, right? It seems like she was marginalized, right, in terms of visibility of her American identity. That somehow they didn't get the representation that Americans come in all kinds of races and cultures and backgrounds, right? And so somehow she was marginalized, right? She was marginalized by this sort of like inequity in representation. So we have to take that into account.